What's good, internet friends? It's your girl Sophia L, and we are back with long form videos again. What? Now, how frequently this is gonna be, I don't know. How long it's gonna last for, I don't know. We're just trying this again. And shout out to you guys, really, for being the ones to continue to ask me questions and to push me to get back into this again because I think it's important. I think these are conversations that fellow creatives need to have with one another, fellow photographers need to have with one another so that we can just help each other out. Today's question is all about studios and studio photography. We're trying to figure out, how do you get one? What do you need when you get one? Do you even need a studio? We're going to answer that as we film in my studio. Let's begin. How do you get a studio? Well, there are some ways to go about it. If you go onto Craigslist, under the housing area of the homepage, there's a link that'll take you to office/commercial spaces, and there is where you'll find listings for office spaces, commercial spaces, studio spaces that are available in your area. And a lot of the times this is a lot cheaper than going through other online searches that charge, a per square footage, and it ends up being, way out of budget. These spaces are, mostly all inclusive and fit smaller budgets for sure. Another way to find studio spaces is by joining Facebook groups. So there's a lot of photography groups, a lot of creative groups locally where people get together to talk about meetups, photo walks, workshops, and you get photographers also talking about studios and studio spaces, and sometimes people are looking to share those studio spaces. So keep an eye out and subscribe to those local groups because there are some gems for sure that you can find that way. Lastly, I would say to find a studio space is to just ask around. Network at events, if you're part of other local photography groups, if just within the art community, just spreading the words out to friends and family, like, hey, if you know of anyone who is looking to rent out a space or wants to share or is curious and wants to go in on one together, friends and family definitely are super helpful in keeping an eye out and ear out for things like that. What's next? What do you need? Well, that is going to depend on you, my friend. And that is when you're going to want to do a needs versus wants analysis. So, for example, when I got my studio, immediately the first thing was like, I got to upgrade my lighting setup. And as much as I really wanted that to happen, really, when I stood back and looked at, well, what's the problem with my lighting? What is it that I want to work on? Turns out that what I actually needed was just a couple of modifiers for the lights that I already have, because there are some specific lighting setups that I wanted to master myself. And if I haven't pushed my gear to the limits, then how am I exactly going to know what it is that I need if I don't know what my current gear does? So definitely looking at your needs versus wants, looking at what you already have and how you can maximize the use out of what you already have. Now, an issue that I also had was kind of like working with a blank canvas. Is like, what do I go from here? How am I supposed to anticipate the things that I need for shoots? Well, you need shoots. So instead of racking your brain on, all the things that you think you need in a studio space and spending all kinds of money on furniture and decor and backdrops and whatever it is you think you need, you got to just start. You just got to dive in. And so that's what I ended up doing. Sure, I did little things here and there. It's like, well, I really needed to have, a couch in here. I needed to have a desk in here. I really wanted to have those small things, but also the purchases that I did make in the very beginning, I made sure were multifunctional. So yeah, it's cool to have a couch in here, but I wanted it to be a very specific color, a very specific material. I wanted it to have very specific functions because I not only wanted it to be a couch, but I also wanted it to be like a kind of like a futon, or something that my subjects could use to lie on, to pose differently. You can make it look like a bed. You can make it look like different things. You can cover it in different sheets. Um, so that was my thought process with that. And really, the rest of it just came with what I needed per shoot. And so this is a good way to build all of your studio equipment. Now, granted, you also have to consider the space that you have, because you can start purchasing things for shoots that you have, and then you just end up with all kinds of stuff that you need to store somewhere. And if your studio space is small, you're either going to be flowing out to the hallways just like I am currently, or you're going to have to get a storage space, or you're just going to have to figure that out. Honestly, and this could be for another video, but some of the things that I've purchased is no longer serving me because it's starting to become more of a pain that it is to use it for shoots. So really, a lot of it is just trial and error, figuring out what works for you. And it's just like anything else that comes with photography. It's like experimenting with the things that you like, experimenting with things that you see, and just figuring out what works for you. Do you even need a space? Again, that is going to come down to you and what you want to do with your photographic career. Now, I have started on location. I always did worked on location, and I love being on location. I looked for a studio because I wanted my own creative space to just do whatever it is that I wanted to do, but also learn more studio lighting, practice on my craft, practice on the studio lighting, practice product photography, and mimicking daylight and manipulating it so that it doesn't matter what time it is out in the day, I can consistently put out the same type of lighting styles as I would out on the field or out on location somewhere. And that's always been a fun challenge, is to really figure out lighting placement and power and color temperatures, and just playing around with that kind of thing. You got to think about overhead. If your studio space is expensive, you got to keep that up every month. And if you're not out booking shoots that are enough to cover your rent, then my friend, either you got to step it up in your bookings, or you got to figure out something else. I know of a lot of photographers who've started out using a corner of their living room, a corner of their dining room, something that was close to a window so that they can get some nice window light in. And I mean, literally, maybe a 4x4 space, and where you can fit one person and you can experiment with things, with portraiture that way. If you need a source of inspiration for that kind of thing, Sue Bryce's Portrait Masters podcast is an incredible source of inspiration for, especially if you're just starting out and thinking about a studio. There's so many stories on there, success stories, where people have found that, yeah, they wanted a studio, so they started with a little corner in their house, and they now have this gigantic studio that they produce all kinds of beautiful work in. I think another misconception with getting a studio, and something that I learned too, because I did start so much on location, is that if you build it, they will not come. I have been here now a year this month, and I am just now finally doing more studio work, the amount of studio work that I wanted to do when I first got the space. So when I first got the space, I kept getting booked for location shoots, and mostly because that's what I am known for. That's all my work has ever been. And so if you want, if you get a space, you're not going to be running out the gates being stacked with bookings for your studio space. And if you are, I mean, congratulations, take that and run, please. But you need to tell people, you need to be out there marketing yourself. You need to be documenting yourself in your space to remind people that yes, you have it. Yes, you can use it. Yes, you want them in your space. And not only that, but you need to build your portfolio as well. You're going to have to put work into it in order to get work out of it. And I think this is really important because it could be discouraging. It's like, you're putting in all of this work, your blood, sweat, and tears into something, and you're not getting any money out of it. Well, that's just part of the game. You got to put in the work, you got to build up that portfolio to show people this is what I can also do, and this is what I have done in my own space, which is now also available to you. So those are just kind of some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about a studio. It's going to be based on an individual basis, and honestly, depending on what you actually need, it might take some time. It might take you a long time to find a space. It took me maybe 2 years to finally find something where I was like, okay, this is cool. And honestly, this isn't even a studio space. This is an old union hall that was built back in the 70s, but I gutted it out. I repainted it, and I got the things that I know that I needed in that time and built from there to make it my own thing. And luckily, it's been working. I've been getting more inquiries, and there's just no greater feeling than being able to be in my own creative space, create my own editorials, and be free to just create on my own terms. And so that is one of the biggest determining factors for me having a space and keeping it. So I hope this helped you guys. If you have any other questions about studios, gear, lighting, anything like that, just feel free to hit me up. You know where to find me. And until next time.